Greetings and welcome to Gabe Talks. In this video, we'll take a trip back in time and revisit Deadpool. This game came out in the year of our Lord 2013. You gotta be freaking kidding me. This game is more than a decade old? I was in high school when this game came out, and it doesn't feel that old. Oh god, the depression is kicking in. We're moving on. Seeing that this is an 11-year-old game, and I need to find a way to keep my mind off my own mortality, let's explore what elements of the game have aged well and what didn't age well. I'm looking at you, you poorly rendered, yet still adorable dog! Anyways, I'll be looking into how well this game holds up after all these years. A few things of note here. I am playing the Xbox One version of this game, mostly because my PS3 died a few years back. R.I.P. you magnificent bastard. So I won't be judging the original iteration of the game, rather I'll be judging the remastered version. Before we get into it, let's take a look back and see how well Deadpool was received by critics. The game was welcomed with mixed reviews, praising its story and humor, but criticizing the combat and repetitive gameplay. At that time, I felt like a lot of the criticisms were harsh, especially because I had such a blast with the game. But now that some time has passed, and I'm saying some time because I'm refusing to acknowledge that this game is 11 years old, but by saying that I'm acknowledging it. No. Don't think about it. Anyways, now that some time has passed, I'm seeing it with new eyes. Don't get me wrong, I still love this game, and I'll get to praising it later on in the video, but first things first, let's talk about the bad.
Don't make me shoot you, boo-boo.
Visually, not everything on this game has aged well, and this is the remaster I'm talking about. There are a few poorly rendered models, and you could see some of its age. I don't want to fault the game too much on this front. After all, not every game from the PS3 and Xbox 360 era has visually aged well, not even the good games. That being said, some of Deadpool's facial animation still looks pretty good. One thing I hate to admit is that the combat does not feel good after all these years. I wouldn't go as far as calling it bad, but there was definitely times that it felt a little sluggish. There are times that the combat looks good, and there are times that it feels a bit awkward. This is especially true in the beginning, where it feels the most clunky, partially because you haven't unlocked all your abilities. The more abilities you unlock, the better you feel, but it still feels a bit sluggish. Oh, and don't get me started on the shooting camera. When you zoom in for a shot, the camera stays half zoomed in. This can affect you when you're in the middle of a dogfight and want to get a better view of the field, but you're stuck zoomed in. This was especially a pain in the ass for the later sections of the game, where there are flying enemies and floating platforms. When you're dodging these enemies' attacks, it was hard to tell where the platform ends, so I found myself falling off constantly. Fortunately, the game does not punish you heavily for falling off the platform, but it doesn't stop it from being annoying. Circling back to the camera issue though, when you're done with the combat scenario, the camera zooms in for a while, which makes the transitioning back to the world feel kind of awkward. There are only two ways out of it: busting out your melee weapons, or patiently wait till Deadpool puts his guns away. And then there's the weapon selection. Melee weapons, guns, and throwables have their own respective buttons in order to switch them. This may sound organized, but in the heat of the battle, it can be very inconvenient. Let's imagine a scenario right now. You're in the middle of a dogfight, and you want to switch from a machine gun to a shotgun. You'd have to keep pressing right on the D-pad until you get a shotgun. This applies to every weapon in the game. I can't tell you how many times I died because I was trying to switch weapons. The system could be easily replaced with the weapon wheel. That way, it could be easier to choose what kind of weapon you want. Unfortunately, that's what we got. I was hoping the remaster would rectify that somehow, but no, we have to suck it up. And speaking of weapons, a lot of them feel unbalanced. This is especially true with the Sai, where it looks cool, but it doesn't seem like it's making enough damage. I rarely found myself using the bear trap and the flashbang. They were okay, but because of the weapon switching, it wasn't worth the hassle. And then there's the enemies. Most of them were bullet spongy, and considering the sluggish combat, it would take forever to take down a bad guy. There are varieties between the enemies, but none of them proved too challenging. Nothing a good button mashing won't fix. If all else fails, button mash away, I always say. Maybe that's why I got fired from the nuclear power plant. I really hate to admit this, especially because I enjoyed it more when I was younger, but the game's combat did not age all that well. It's the one thing I'll give the critics of this game. Although I do not agree that the game has repetitive gameplay. I've actually find this criticism to be unfair to a certain extent. Outside of gameplay, I'd say the only thing that didn't age well narratively are some of the jokes. Deadpool does say a lot of sexist jokes. Now, I'm not above a good boob joke, and I'm definitely not above a good dick joke. But in a post-Me Too era, I do have to point out elements that can be seen as problematic for a female player. Again, I don't mind these jokes, but someone else might. Whether we like it or not, we live in a sensitive era. But hey, that's Deadpool for ya. He isn't the most politically correct character out there. Nor should he be. Imagine a politically correct Deadpool? Ugh. That'd be horrible. Before I go on, let me issue a spoiler warning for the rest of the video, because in my footage, I will share pieces of the ending and give away some of the game's punchlines. I don't want to hear complaining about an 11-year-old game. Alright, one last thing to put an end to my criticism is that I didn't like the ending. The game didn't have the best boss fights per se, and this was especially true with the final boss, where they just throw you everything, including previously fought bosses. And then they end it with Mr. Sinister and his army of clones, which behave more like your generic enemies. The way he goes out in the end was admittedly pretty funny, but afterwards they just rolled the credits. That's it. Well, that's not completely true. They have a few zingers here and there, but nothing worthwhile. I mean, what the hell? We beat the bad guy and that was it? I wanted a better finale, especially because the rest of the game game was such an epic ride. Unfortunately, this is what we got. Now enough shitting on the game, let's praise this thing.
That's for making me love you!
Above all, the reason you'll want to stick with this game is for the humor. The comedy in this game will make you forget all of its flaws. I do have to say, if you don't like the Deadpool brand of humor, then this game probably isn't for you. But in my case, I found it to be a blast.
No more than 20 ounces.
What? Oh, I hate the metric system. How much in American?
Let's see, carry the 7...
Dude, fuck math. Just use all of it.
Deadpool is, of course, the highlight of his own game. If this game were to take out Deadpool for some dumb reason and replace them with some generic dude, then this game would have sucked!
Wrecked him? Darn near killed him.
Fortunately, we never have to deal with that hypothetical. Circling back to the comedy in this game, Deadpool has two inner voices in his head that make hilarious commentary on what's happening in the game. These inner voices help fill the lonely moments in the game with their ridiculous shenanigans.
FYI for all you nerds out there getting all puffy over the fact that Rogue in the comics currently does not have the power to fly. Well, you can officially move out of your parents' basement, get a job and a life, and maybe, just maybe you'll kiss a real girl.
Yeah, she flies in our game.
Man, I wish my inner voices were more like Deadpool's. All my voices tell me to do is to smoke cigarettes.
Which you totally should smoke. It's awesome and it will make you cool.
But he won't do that because he's a loser. That's why Karen took the kids. Shut up and hey! You promised you wouldn't bring that up no more. So yeah, there are 3 versions of Deadpool to help carry this game. And since this is Deadpool we're talking about, of course you could expect fourth wall breaks. And boy, Deadpool didn't just break the fourth wall. He absolutely demolished it. They have a lot of clever uses for these fourth wall breaks, like using speech bubbles to platform onto the other side of a huge gap, or commenting on making cheap props for the game's environment. They pretty much use the fourth wall breaks to get the game going. It begins with Deadpool wanting to star in a video game, and pretty much threatens High Moon Studios, the real life developers of this game, into making it. There was a point during the making of this video where I was going to criticize the plot, but the thing is, from the get-go, Deadpool says that the plot doesn't matter. And it's true, the plot wasn't going to matter because the game was about the stupid things that happened during the journey, not about finding the purpose of the narrative. On a separate note, the level design was masterfully integrated with the game's comedy. There are ridiculous shenanigans like navigating through a 6-bit level because Deadpool wasted the game's budget, and trying to find the disembodied heads of a mystic Deadpool. By the way, the amazing Deadpoolio should be more of a mainstay for future uses of the character. The game has these fun scenarios where you can interact with the world and the characters in it. Like there's a section of the game where Deadpool is bored of hearing Cable's explanation of the plot, and then shoots himself so he'd stop suffering from boredom.
Suicide is badass.
What the hell are you doing here, other voice? Get back in your void! Aw, what a potty pooper! Anyways, one of my favorite interactions is Deadpool bitch slapping the shit out of a knocked out Wolverine. Honestly, this scene was the reason why I wanted to get the game.
That's for never taking us to the prom.
And speaking of the game's world, Deadpool is not ashamed of its comic book roots. When I first played Deadpool, I didn't even know who was Cable and Mrs. Sinister until I played this game. Despite that, this game still tries its best to keep you informed on who is who. Actually, there's a neat feature that predates the active Time Lore that was praised in Final Fantasy XVI. Sometimes during the game's cutscene, a prompt will pop up asking you if you want to know more about a certain character. It will stop the cutscene and Deadpool will give you a humorous summary about the character, with art pulled straight from the comics. Once he's done explaining, the game will start the interrupted cutscene from the top, so you can watch it with a better understanding of who are the characters involved. I do wish there was a better way to revisit these informative cutscenes. You can visit them from the main menu, but I wish you could also do it from the pause menu because I occasionally got sucked into the cutscene and didn't realize that the prompt came up. If you're looking for a game where you could turn off your brain and are just looking for a good laugh, then this is the game for you. Replaying Deadpool has been a blast, even if there were a few wrinkles in the gameplay. I should warn you, the game is short, but with comedy games, I feel like that works for its benefit. The game is currently delisted from digital stores, but you might find some copies at an online or physical retail store. It's remastered on Xbox One and PS4, or if you still have one collecting dust in your closet, for Xbox 360 and PS3, if you somehow get the original version of the game. Thanks for watching. Now I'm going to pass the mic to my inner voices so they can wrap this up.
Join the cult of Cthulhu.
Yes, we promise we won't sacrifice you. No, don't do that. Stop telling people to do that. Fine. Like and subscribe if you like this tool's video.
And if you played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you should watch his other videos and see how it compares to the original. Can I get a cookie now?
No. Fuck you then. We're going back to our void. Anyways, in all seriousness, do like and subscribe so that you can help build the channel and I get to create more videos like this. Catch you all later.
That's for never washing the dishes. That's for last year's white elephant gift. Who wants a white elephant? And finally, that's because the whole setup just added 5 minutes of bonus play to the most awesome game ever devised by Mutant or Man.